Hello everyone, and welcome back to, or welcome for the first time to Away and Awake. I've not been recording very much. I've been working on some other stuff recently in a different sphere of my life, but I thought I should just pop something up quickly. I just wanted to try to get into the habit of doing these, even if it's impromptu, and is nothing elaborate. There's a apprehension that I have around posting, I suppose, content that's not especially thought through, particularly on this channel with regard to dreams, because I feel like it's a subject matter that it has the risk of being inherently tedious to listen to, if not well formulated. But for now, I'm just going to throw out a little bit of dream content. I've been having pretty interesting dreams of late. Nothing super transcendental on the whole. I use that word, I don't know if it's the appropriate word, but nothing, highly non-ordinary in its state of consciousness, but a few bits and pieces here and there. But definitely conceptually interesting dreams, and ones of some apparent spiritual significance to me. I use that word in a very secular way. I want to make sure that people understand that this is not me interpreting dreams through any sort of religious lens. And I guess I use the word spiritual as a pointer to the fact of these having deep emotional significance and generating deep emotional states during the dreams, and having a certain subjective sense of meaning about them that is not so much extending into the real world and making claims about when I say real world, the waking world, making claims about physical reality or the fundamental nature of reality, but meaning just kind of within the context of the dream itself, within the experience. There's an inner state of meaningfulness that occurs. Many of those have been occurring lately, and this is a quick snippet of something. I'm not sure if it was longer than this and I just forget all the detail, or if this was mostly it. The image on the screen is a rough approximation of the scene, built with Mid-Journey. It's hard to get it to do exactly what you have in mind, but this gives a general idea of the premise, which was that I was in a place that in the countryside somewhere had a certain feel of England, Dartmoor or something like that, and I had just arrived at this location. And just ahead of me, maybe 5 meters up an embankment, a muddy embankment, there was an older woman, and she was apparently somebody that lived in this place and that was involved in this place. This was a particular. There was some sort of community that had taken root here, although she's the only one that I saw. And I was this new arrival. It was very peaceful, but also a kind of undertone of concern and weariness, I suppose, about the nature or the state of the world. And there was this kind of sense as if I'd arrived as a kind of pilgrim, that she was receiving me with the assumption that I had come to join this place, and that my motivation would have been to finally find resolution to all of my problems and to the problems of the world, that somehow this place would offer this magic solution to everything. That's what she might be assuming of me, because she cautioned me. I think she greeted me by saying something to the effect that I was welcome but that I ought not to enter the place with expectations of this great resolution. And I understood what she was saying and why she was saying it and why she might assume this. And I wanted to I responded by to clarify my intent and saying something along the lines that I understand that and that's not what I'm looking for, but that there's a different kind of resolution that I believe is available in not so much resolving the outside world or resolving all these inner problems, but that this struck me as a place that an individual could go to be with that quandary, to be with the deep well of sensation and commotion that comes with living in the time that we are living in. When I say that comes with that can come. Everyone's different. Everyone's nervous system receives reality differently. But for some, including myself, there's a very complex well of commotion that exists in response to where I perceive the world to be and what it's doing, what it's becoming. And I was acknowledging to her that I saw this as a place where one could be in that state rather than to resolve it and be amongst others that had a similar project in mind. And indeed, that underneath all of this was, I perceive myself in the real world as this kind of person, and I think there are others, and in the dream this place was a place for such people, those who don't jive with the idea that any of this can be resolved, or at least in a very active sense by our actions as a collective, that the global system is an organism in itself. It's in some sense, the connected human network is a big brain, many brains connected together, more and more so via a sprawling and ever increasing architecture of interconnection. And that within such a system there are very complex dynamics, and that this was a place for people who perceived things that way, who understood that reality or had that understanding of reality, and as such were drawn to embracing the potential end of all things, or the potential end of life. Not just our life, not just the life of other sentient creatures here, but potentially, for all we know, the end of conscious experience in the universe, at least for now, until some sort of potential regeneration of these similar circumstances to allow for something later on, but that the culture, there's a broad tendency within our cultures or at least my culture, at least let's say broadly Western modern cultures, of simply not allowing oneself to consider seriously the possibility that this is the end, that we're in a dying process. And it's odd because we have another cultural understanding that death is death and taxes are the two certainties. We all know that death just is a basic fact of the process of living, and yet we don't extend that idea, even metaphorically, to the living organism of the collective or of the planet. And why should we assume that that system is immune from death when we are not, especially of course when we ourselves constitute that system, at least part of it. So there's this great resistance to acknowledging that potential, even, let alone kind of toying with the idea that it's probable. Maybe it's not, but and instead the project, the main project of the culture, is to do everything, is to frantically act, to frantically opine around conceptions of what we can actively do to change all of this, as if not only the death process is impossible or unthinkable, but that it is inherently bad. I think that's actually a bigger point that I'm trying to get to here in my thinking. It's not only that personally I feel inclined towards believing we're in a dying process, and that an approach to that is healthy involves some level of acknowledgement of that truth, but also that I see potential within that to reframe that death in a more I don't want to say positive, or that's partly it. I'm looking for a more nuanced word than that. In a more equanimous way, I guess. But it's more than that. It is genuinely in seeing a kind of beauty in that reality. That is the throw that we are in. I don't know if a throw can be singular. The throes that we're in. It's tragic on many levels, and simultaneously from some abstract place, very beautiful. And from an individual's nervous system point of view, I think there is value in being able to engage that concept without being pushed immediately towards solutions, immediately towards fear and panic about this ending. I'm going to pause for 1 second. Just gathering my thoughts a little bit there. A few things. I was thinking, it's not surprising that we have this issue of resisting looking squarely at the potential of death on a collective scale, because of course we have it even on the individual scale in many cases. I think it's a great it's an area of human psychology and experience that is still in much need of maturation. The idea of so staunchly resisting death, it's understandable that it would be so wired into our nervous systems and our psychology, but I think so many things that nature wired into us have over a long period of time evolved into more healthful ways of perceiving and being, and I do feel there is a shift happening with regard to our approach to personal death, but there is still an enormous amount of resistance to it. I think I was just thinking of the distinction between the person that's dying and the people that are watching that person die, and actually I think it would be unrealistic to expect that an individual may be able to very actively shift their perception of their own death. They're responding to the internal mechanisms of their body and their mind, and some will have an equanimous response to that, others will not. But where there's much greater scope for a more considered and evolved response is in the community around those people. In the same way that when someone commits a serious crime, let's say somebody's killed, the victim or the victim's family are not the people that we should be expecting to bring compassion and understanding towards the perpetrator. It's completely legitimate that they would struggle, but that is no reason why collectively we ought not to aim to develop and evolve more compassionate systems for dealing with such perpetrators, for managing how culturally we talk about those things. There's a certain violence and aggression in the way we talk about events like that, which I think is misplaced, although completely acceptable and understandable from the point of view of the victims themselves. But I digress. Pause for one more second. And then I guess maybe the final points that I would like to raise, I think that this acceptance of the potential for this being a dying phase is not only is it healthy for the individual, and I think for groups of people and society more generally, and not only is it potentially something that can be seen through a lens of beauty and sort of universal beautiful tragedy, but that if there is some sort of process by which we come through this dying process, whether that's us personally as a species to a new phase, or whether in our dying something else comes along, if there's a possibility of some future that is more evolved and more alive, but in a different way than our own right now, it would come precisely with a healthy amount of this kind of acceptance, that the excessive panic and striving to avoid looking squarely at that possibility and that reality, I think is actually hastening the demise and limiting the potential for this to be transmuted into something which over the stretch of time becomes a beautiful step forward in the universal life project, not just the human life project, and indeed in the human life project as well, but in something bigger than that. do think there was something else that I wanted to mention, but it evades me for a second. One more pause. No, I think I'll leave it there. So thank you for listening to this minor ramble. And again, apologies that for now I'm not constructing more elaborate formal writing about these dreams. Some of my videos previously have been these longer form essays where I've delved into this particular details of a dream. And I have many more of those that I'd like to do, that I've written rough notes for and I'd like to flesh out. My dreams of late have been much shorter and more or less detailed, like this one today, and so aren't as given to writing. I say that I think as potential for a creative writer, you could take this scene and then expand into something more, but traditionally what I've been doing is taking the entire dream, which have in the past been extremely long and detailed dreams, and simply translating that dream into words. A dream like this maybe requires me to make some more effort to build a story out around the core concept. But in any case, thank you for sticking with me if you have to this point. I hope to continue with dream related content, consciousness, spirituality, artificial intelligence as well, and a bunch of little bits and pieces in that kind of space. So thank you again. Very much appreciate your audience, and if you'd like to keep up with these, of course you can subscribe, and next time I post you'll be notified. In the meantime, be well, sleep well, dream well, and I'll see you all again soon.